So welcome to Oakwell for this afternoon's vital clash for the Latics with Barnsley. The recent run of poor results with no league win in the last 10 matches has unfortunately left the Latics just 4th from the bottom of the table. Now injuries have played a great part in that, as we all know, but as Joe Royals pointed out, conceding soft goals at one end and missing chances at the other isn't unfortunately a recipe for success. And I'm sure Latics will think back to the match with Barnsley right at the start of the season, when a last-minute goal gave Barnsley a 1-1 draw and has set something of a trend for the matches that have followed. At least the problems on the injury front seem to be receding, and it's good to see, as I just look down now, that Tommy Wright's returning to the bench today, perhaps not quite fully match fit, so Joe Royal using him on the bench, perhaps with the idea of bringing him on for 20-30 minutes into the second half. Barnsley themselves have not been without their injury problems. The missing midfield man, Gwyn Thomas, who has a very severe knee ligament injury, is out for the rest of the season, which he picked up in the 4-0 win over Chelsea 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he, of course, was the man of the match in the corresponding fixture just 2 years ago. And so, as the referee gets the formalities out of the way, it's Barnsley to kick off. There's not much of a breeze. What breeze there is blowing crossfield away from us. And Barnsley get the game in motion. And that's Mike Milligan, over-eager, straight away, making his point with David Curry, this highly rated Barnsley striker who's been the subject of a number of inquiries from First Division clubs this season. And so John Beresford, wearing these popular under trousers, as Barnsley with the first chance, and that wasn't a good shot, fortunately. I think it was Paul McGugan, I'll just check. Indeed it was a centre-half shot if ever there was one, sailing into the quite a good following of Latics fans perched up there behind Andy Rhodes. Rhodes it is, left-footed, the ball missed by everybody. And that's a nice ball onto Ritchie, and Ritchie, has he pushed that away too deep? He hasn't, in fact. It was touched by a defender. And Neil Adams thinks about the throw, leaves it instead for Earl Barrett. Barrett to Ritchie. Ritchie kills the ball instantly, returns to Barrett. Barrett looking for Marshall, doesn't find him. But Barnsley not clearing the lines. And that was a very fortuitous clearance from ex-Latics' favourite Futcher. In the end, the ball returned to Clive Baker. And Barnsley break, and that's Kerry off, just offside. He remonstrates with the touch judge. And the referee, in turn, has a word with him. And he's still not shut up. As Peter Skipper, having given Andy Rhodes a touch, decides this time to drive the ball upfield. He looks for Marshall, doesn't find him, but that's a good head. And Ritchie, a super flick to Palmer, who scored that lovely goal here last year. Barrett. And that's touched the defender and just gathered in nicely by Clive Baker, but that was a dangerous moment for Barnsley as Ian Marshall applied pressure to Paul McGugan. Baker did well. It's not the easiest of conditions for a goal this afternoon, a slippy ball, and that's a foul on Holden. And play, as you can see, confined to a very small area. Good head from Futcher. Skipper nearly misjudged that one, and Barrett tidies up. It's a good long ball to MacDonald. A swinger of great pace, as Irwin just can't control that. It's caused Dennis Irwin some problems in the past as this speedy lad on the left flank. Curry holds the ball well, but loses out to Palmer, who's back helping his defence. And Peter Skipper just happy to send that ball all the way through. Clive Baker under no pressure. And Andy Holden not getting the better of Steve Cooper. It's a super ball, and Marshall holds it up well. But Milligan's control just let him down when he needed it. Curry, super turn from Curry. Little touch of class, but well intercepted by Milligan. Read that ball. Ritchie trying to flick on, not quite succeeding. Skipper covers well on Curry. And that's a Latics throw. Good firm challenge. Ritchie gets the head on. And there's some jostling. It seemed to me that Curry was possibly backing onto Skipper, or at least it was 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but that's not how the referees interpreted it. And Andy Rhodes, I'm afraid that won't do his confidence any good. He was never getting within range of that ball. Fortunately, Earl Barrett was there to tidy up. He'll want to get quickly into this game, well, Andy Rhodes, after his mistake of last week against City. And Joe Royal certainly made his intentions clear with an unsuccessful loan bid for Mike Stowell, Everton's reserve goalie, during the week. But after all the... As Latics bring that ball out nicely, after all the potential signings, in fact, he has decided to keep Andy Rhodes. He's given him an extra go. And Peter Skipper, beautifully positioned, but that's not a good ball back. Marshall holds up nicely, finds Adams. Adams' pass intercepted by Lowndes. Marshall takes nicely on his chest. Barrett. And that's a late tackle. Quickly spotted by the referee. And Earl Barrett leaves the kick in the end to Andy Holden. Drives in left-footed. Marshall gets a good head, and Ritchie was there but just offside. But certainly Latics have unsettled this Barnsley defence. And Holding again, misses out in the air. And is that a penalty? It's not indeed. David Curry took a dive, and the referee judged it that way. And so Much to the annoyance of the home fans. It's a goal kick to Andy Rhodes. He does seem to be kicking against a slight breeze. Nick Henry up well. Futcher just gets in a foot. McDonald up above Irwin. Beautiful control from Kerry, but Dennis Irwin back to sweep up tidily. And a nice clearance from Dennis Irwin. But McDonald does well. That's a nice ball out to Joe Joyce. Steadies himself for the cross. That must be Andy Rhodes' ball. And he gathers it nicely. I'm sure he's taken to note the words of Joe Raw this week when he said in the local press that he wants him to take more command in his area. Joe feeling that we've conceded too many goals from misunderstanding and moments of confusion. And it certainly looks that way as he's come out cleanly for the first two crosses. He didn't succeed on the first, but it didn't deter him on that one. As Barnsley break again. Skipper just beaten slightly for pace, Peter Skipper, but that's a good tackle. And the first corner of the match after 10 minutes goes to Barnsley. Is it? Barnsley drive in to the penalty spot. Beautiful clearance from Palmer. Home crowd not happy, I'm not sure at what. Barrett clears. And that's a good hit on the volley from Jim Dobbin. But well wide of the target. No trouble for Rhodes. And a towering header from Joe Joyce, way above Neil Adams. Oh, Barrett sensibly coming back to give Andy Rhodes the option of the short ball. Kicking against this slight breeze. Looking this time for Palmer. Palmer gets a good head on and Ritchie turns his man as he's penalised. I'm not quite sure what for. It seemed to me that Paul McGugan just lost his footing. It's a tremendous kick from Clive Baker right to the edge of the Latics box. Palmer back with John Beresford, no problems. McDonald's trickery, he defeats himself. Ball not in play, Dennis Irwin will get another go. Palmer does well, finds Marshall, Marshall chest down nicely, but McGugan just gets in on Ritchie as Latics threaten to break. Nice ball from Henry as Adams breaks wide. Barrett gives him the ball. He shows too much of it to Joe Joyce, but Barrett almost recovers the situation. Limes on the break. That's a good cross. And Rhodes a good punch. Limes did well. Regathers. Joyce to Futcher in support, and Futcher. Pressure not relieved, it's Curry. Shoots straight at Rhodes, no problems. It's a much better kick from Andy Rhodes. And Nick Henry with a short arm jab, I think is the best description of that particular tackle. Futcher. Good clearance from Barrett as Futcher looking for Steve Cooper, the tall, somewhat gangling centre forward with all these free kicks. And it's an in-swinging corner. Barrett clears nicely. Lyons puts the ball back out. And that was just flicked actually away from the Latics goal by Cooper, but Latics not clearing the lines well. Milligan tries this time. Joe Joyce out on the right flank, and that was a terrible tackle. That was a terrible tackle on Andy Rhodes by Steve Cooper. Rhodes had gathered that ball nicely. He made no attempt, in my opinion, to play the ball. It'll be interesting to see what the referee decides. I think it's a talking to, and that's all. But it certainly was a most unnecessary challenge. And certainly Mr. Reid, our man in the middle today, has a long talk, but that's all it is. But Andy Rhodes is still on the deck, and that'll be the last thing that Latics need, to lose him. Seems to be a knock around the kidney area, but thankfully he's recovered. And so it's Andy Rhodes himself with the kick. Clears well. McGugan up above Ritchie. Palmer wins the header. Marshall too tries to find Ritchie, doesn't succeed. But a poor clearance from John Beresford doesn't help his team's cause. Dennis Irwin looks for Ritchie. Ritchie nudges on, but Futcher just there first. Palmer to Ritchie, and that's Ian Marshall well offside. In fact, the referee's given a free kick to Latics. That surprised everybody, including the Latics players who had gone back for the offside decision, as Latics this time send up Andy Holden. Dennis Irwin instead picks out Marshall, and Marshall just nods in the air for Baker, and it's a long quick clearance towards David Curry, and skipper clears, but a good tackle from Earl Barrett. It's just over Ritchie's head. I think Latics need to play more to feet. Andy Ritchie giving away a lot in height to Paul McGugan, but he's already shown signs of causing him problems on the ground. Marshall up nicely, finds Ritchie this time. Ritchie to Adams in space. First time he's had the chance to run at his man, doesn't get very far. Good head this time from Holding. And well back from Nick Henry. He's certainly earned his first team spot this afternoon, Nick Henry, with some good games in recent weeks. And this time Roger Palmer bowls over John MacDonald. Pearce with the deep kick. Well cleared by Holden. Futcher in support, as he often likes to do. That's a very, very tame shot, incurring the wrath of the Latics fans behind that goal. Marshall up again, well, and Ritchie just beaten by Futcher. That's a tremendous pass from Futcher, and MacDonald beats Dennis Irwin on the inside. Irwin recovers well. Henry, the attempted acrobatic clearance, and Palmer with his feet up in that tattle, being pulled over by Mr. Reid, an assistant bank manager by trade. He's certainly making his feelings known to Roger. That's a terrible ball from Jim Dobbin. Peter Skipper with the kick. Looks for Roger Palmer, finds him well. Ritchie back to Palmer, but Palmer can only find Futcher with his first time pass. Curry, Skipper in well. Dennis Irwin takes nicely. Roger Palmer just wants a little too much time. Ritchie turns, a good shout that was from Ian Marshall to help Andy Ritchie, and a lovely ball from Henry it looked, but just intercepted by fullback Joyce. This time Neil Adams penalised. Futcher, the long ball, searching out his centre forward. He does so, but clever defence from Milligan, just nods back to Rhodes, no panic. This time not such a good kick from Andy Rhodes. David Curry calling for the long ball. It's a long throw as that, didn't reach him. This one might. Skipper in well. Curry finds MacDonald. MacDonald, a left-footed in-swinger, just missed by Lowndes coming in at the near post. But it's certainly been a scrappy opening 22 minutes, with no team really, neither side getting on top. Most of the play in midfield, very few goal-mouth incidents. Andy Rhodes, a good clear call, and Dennis Irwin obliges. Futcher doesn't beat Marshall, and Ritchie, a lovely ball to Adams, if Adams can keep that one in, and he succeeds. Interesting to see Latics playing him out on the left flank. In his Everton days, when he's played against Latics, he's tended to play on the right flank. But of course Roger Palmer likes to operate in the same territory. Milligan in strongly, but Barnsley break well, and Milligan, tremendous tackle back. I think he was most unfortunate to be adjudged to have fouled on that occasion. That looked to me to be a perfectly clean tackle, ball first, but Mr. Reid has certainly let nothing whatsoever go this afternoon, and Mike Milligan's still showing his annoyance at that decision. And again, skipper just beaten in the air by Cooper. It's the only time really that Barnsley have threatened Latics as Futcher breaks. The ball flicked across by Steve Agnew. And return to Steve Agnew. Now Futcher beats his man nicely. Ball out to Beresford, and Beresford drives in a good shot just over the bar, but Andy Rhodes had it covered all the way. But that's the first real shot of any note, and with 25 minutes into the first half. Roger Palmer finds Adams well. Adams trying to find Ritchie with a first time ball. And Andy Rhodes won't be pleased that the sun's just broken through at the opposite end of the field to him. I can assure you can see when you get down to his end the long shadows it's casting, and that's a very low watery sun right in Andy Rhodes' eyes. That ball, will it stay in for Adams? Not quite. Latics could just do with a fillip of a goal. Barrett gets a good cross. Marshall, can Palmer get the touch? He can't quite. And McDonald's wide right. Milligan sprints out to meet him. McDonald turns inside, and that's offside. Steve Agnew, Andy Rhodes there to cover anyway. Latics defence out very, very quickly, catching at least two men offside. So Peter Skipper with the kick. Palmer beaten by Beresford. It's a nice ball in from Milligan. If Irwin can get there, he can, but only to get a dead ball. Dennis Irwin's first real foray down the right flank. Trying to get back to pick up John McDonald. He just about does so. And again Cooper up well. Kerry, it seemed, backed on, and I think that's an unfortunate decision for Andy Holden. It seemed to be the other way to me. Be interesting to see if Steve Lowndes lines up for this one. Something of a free kick specialist. And you can see Andy Rhodes shielding his eyes. He doesn't appear to have a cap of any sort down there. The referee takes position right by Andy Rhodes, and that's an appalling shot really. That certainly won't cause him any bother. It did, however, cause a skirmish among the photographers. And Rhodes clears well. That was a push in the back from Lowndes, not spotted. The referee not having the fortunate view that we've got. And that was the right idea from Ian Marshall, but he just played the ball too strongly. There was plenty of space there for Dennis Irwin. Dennis Irwin up well, getting in front of David Curry on these throws. Ritchie, good ball down, and Marshall was only fractionally offside on that occasion. He just went a fraction too soon. That would have been a dangerous pass. Beresford to Fuchs. Fuchs to Joyce. Joyce pressured by Adams. Takes the 1-2. That's good football from Barnsley. But Andy Holding does well. He has the pace. He was pressured by Cooper and Agnew. Joyce coming up for the throw. Well in, a great tackle that from Earl Barrett. Very, very quickly. Didn't give him time to settle. Good tattle. Barrett looking for Ritchie. Ritchie gets the head on. Fuchs only finds Barrett. And it's head tennis at the moment. So it's pumped back by Barnsley. Nick Henry gets in, can't find a man. Beresford. McDonald controls the ball nicely but sends a poor cross. Adams back helping his defence. Marshall and Fuchs. Fuchs, ball spins off his foot. McDonald heads backwards cleanly. Palmer just bundles in to McDonald. There was nothing in that at all. Roger shakes his head as Barnsley take the kick quickly. But Steve Cooper found offside. And both teams playing an offside game. It's certainly not helping the flow of the match. I think that, together with the perhaps rather finicky decisions at times by the referee, have not led to any sort of flow or pattern so far in the first 30 minutes. But Barnsley have a break on with a man extra. And is this a goal? It is indeed for Barnsley. All sorts of chaos in the Latics defence. Suddenly Barnsley had a spare man. And in the end it was right winger Lowndes across to take the ball round Andy Rhodes and stick it in the net. And Barnsley, not really having looked like scoring a goal all afternoon, suddenly get one from nothing. From absolutely nothing. Latics just caught sleeping at the back. And it'll certainly test the Latics character now, because they've not really created much. They've defended stoutly. McGugan, a little arm on the back of Andy Ritchie. And how Latics would dearly love a quick riposte. But Barnsley head clear. Adams first time in. Fuchs takes the ball off Marshall. He reads it well, but he doesn't read the move of David Curry, who turned inside. Al Barrett sends a long ball to Marshall. Marshall attempts to flick on. Instead it's returned to Barrett. Curry in with the tattle. And Ritchie in space For one of the few times this afternoon, finds Palmer nicely. Palmer to Irwin. Irwin with a first time ball. Not a good cross from Dennis Irwin, as MacDonald does well. Latics putting Barnsley defenders under pressure, but a nice dummy from McGugan makes space for himself and puts a lovely ball through for MacDonald, but skippers across with a good sliding tackle. But good football from Paul McGugan, Barnsley centre back. As Barnsley, you can see the confidence coming in the play, sort of confidence that a goal gives you. Andy Holden just fouled as he attempted to bring the ball out. Palmer up, Beresford misheads. Andy Ritchie surrounded by 3 Barnsley defenders. Cooper tries a fancy one, doesn't succeed. It's a nice header from Marshall. Palmer just can't get the touch. Now Barrett showing good pace. Finds Rhodes easily. Two Latics men going for the ball, neither succeeding. Skipper takes on the chest, finds Marshall well. Marshall to Ritchie. Ritchie gathers and beats his man beautifully, Andy Ritchie. And I can't believe that decision. He's given an offside decision. Andy Ritchie didn't pass the ball. He kept the ball himself quite clearly, but an offside decision given against Roger Palmer. One of the few chances Andy Ritchie's had to break free. And as always seems to be the case, when the game's not going with you, the luck doesn't go with you either. And Mike Milligan questioning that decision of Mr. Reid. Tremendous kick from Baker, well spotted by Irwin. Beresford takes on his chest. That's a brilliant ball. Barrett's just back, because Lowndes had certainly got goal side of him. That's a great ball out of defence. Adams swapping flanks, having a go on the right wing, but not succeeding. The broad Birmingham accent of Mr. Reid barking out. MacDonald blocking Irwin's cross. Irwin to Ritchie, and the referee has now penalised Dennis Irwin for moving up about 2 yards. And as I say, he's certainly a finicky official. Certainly most referees, I don't think, it wasn't as if he was pinching yards and yards. Most officials would have allowed play on. And Kerry backing onto Skipper again, Holden well up. Good shout from Rhodes to Irwin. As Kerry stands on Andy Rhodes, and he just brushes him aside. Futcher doesn't clear well. Palmer can't just find Ritchie. Can Barrett? Barrett tries and can't. Good tackling from Futcher, and Barnsley clear. But certainly if Latics can apply pressure on this Barnsley back four, they don't seem secure, particularly on the deck. Ian Marshall keeps the ball in. Roger Palmer ghosting on the blind side, but McGugan again, very composed. almost too composed as he gave Roger Palmer a second bite. Skipper up well, fouled by Kerry. McGugan into the back of Marshall, says the ref. Again, that looked like a good firm challenge, but we shan't complain. Just 6 minutes plus not very much injury time, perhaps a minute for Andy Rhodes' knock. It's a nice ball in, and that ball just flicked over the bar. It looked for a minute as if it was going to make the top corner. Clive Baker fingertipped it over. But Latics first corner brings the Latics fans to life behind Andy Rhodes' goal. There's Neil Adams with the in-swinging kick. Skipper. And Barnsley get the ball away hurriedly. Irwin straight back. Barrett up well. Did Milligan hands it? Yes, says the ref. Just nudged it. And Kerry looking dangerous, gets the ball, but he can't find MacDonald. And that was a chest down. He chested that ball down, I'm sure. Did Neil Adams, but Mr. Reid doesn't agree. And so Barnsley in a very dangerous position. John Beresford with the kick. Curls it beyond Andy Rhodes. And did Earl Barrett touch that the way he's chasing it? I think he possibly did. No, he didn't, in fact. It's a Latics throw. Futcher robbed by Marshall, but Marshall in turn just beaten to the ball by Joyce. Skipper sprays the ball wide for Adams. Adams back to Irwin. Irwin checks a super ball. Was that his shoulder? No, it wasn't. That was the chest, says the ref. In good position to see. Andy Holden struggling to see that ball in the low sun. Andy Rhodes says clear it. He shows too much of it to David Curry. And Curry beats his man Irwin back to help, but Curry recovers and gets a corner. Great work out there by David Curry. Not a good time to concede another corner. Just 3 minutes on the watch. And it's a near post ball, and that was so near to being another one, and that's a corner. A great stop. I think it was by Nick Henry on the line, but Latics in all sorts of trouble from that flick on. I think Rhodes made a good save in the first instance, but it was all hands to the pump, and Andy Ritchie, recognising so, goes back in there to help as well. This time it's a deeper corner, well met by Marshall. And that was a hand on the back from Cooper, I thought. Not given. Another corner to Barnsley. John MacDonald going over again for the in-swinging kick. And again the ball's flicked on and Curry's on his own. And the ball's blocked by Ritchie and Rhodes. and it's all happening in that Latics defence. They're just unable to clear the lines. It's a good job Andy Ritchie went back, because he stopped a pile driver from Steve Agnew. And suddenly Barnsley have come to life. Over comes the corner. Good head from Marshall again. Beresford dummies the kick to the wing. Instead lays back to Futcher, but Latics have at least got out of the box. It's a tremendous pass from Futcher. Well kept in by Lowndes. Lowndes with the cross. Skipper with the head. There's two men free on the far post. That's one of them. A great save from Rhodes. Another shot. And Latics in all sorts of trouble at the back. Peter Skipper's carrying a knock. And at last Andy Rhodes gets hold of that ball. We've had 3 minutes of incessant pressure in that Latics box, which they'll certainly be glad they've survived. That's a super ball to Curry, and Curry's got the legs of Skipper, has he? In fact, he hasn't. It appeared that he had. Dennis Irwin tattles back well, but loses the ball and is eventually fouled by Steve Agnew, but the composure just isn't there in Latics play. As the touch judges signal to the referee that 45 minutes are up. He's just playing a little bit of injury time now. Milligan out to Adams. Can Adams beat his man? He doesn't. He puts in a good cross. Ritchie dummies it, but it doesn't reach Ian Marshall. Barrett dummies the pass to Marshall. Palmer to Ritchie, and Palmer, I thought, was pulled down after he'd passed the ball, and there in fact goes the half-time whistle. A loud blast from Mr. Reid. Disappointing half for Latics. Barnsley not really deserved to go in front, although having said that, in that little skirmish at the end of the half could well have brought a second goal. But Joe Roll will have to do some talking at half time. It'll be interesting to see if he does indeed bring Tommy Wright into the fray, because certainly Latics do need a spark up front. They've not really tested in any serious way at all yet this afternoon the Barnsley keeper Clive Baker. So welcome back for the second half as Latics prepare to get the game in motion. Mr. Reid just checking the players. I'm looking around to see if there are any substitutions by either side. I don't think so. Earl Barrett bringing Andy Rhodes quickly into the game. This time kicking with the slight breeze at his back. And Neil Adams starting out on the right where he finished the first half, and Andy Ritchie beautifully beating his man, and really a free kick. Not much of a reward because it gives the Barnsley defence time to regroup as Latics send up both centre backs as they strive for this early equaliser. The two furthest men, Peter Skipper and Andy Holding, and there's Skipper. In fact, he doesn't head for goal, he heads back across really to nowhere. I think it might have been worth putting Clive Baker under pressure. Curry's onside, but Barrett's covering with him. But Curry beats him, but he does so by pulling his shirt, as clearly signified by the ref, right on the spot. Peter Skipper, this time catching Futcher off balance, a chance for Palmer, but he just can't strike the ball as he wanted to, and it runs rather tamely, well wide of the Barnsley goals. Futcher goes back for the short one, Ritchie goes with him, but not quick enough. Clive Baker, that's a tremendous kick again, and well headed on by Cooper, but cleared by Barrett. And has Marshall judged that right? No, in fact he hasn't. And offside. Steve Cooper. And Andy Holding up there again, as Peter Skipper, I'm sure, will try and search out him and Ian Marshall. Marshall it is, under the ball. Futcher above him. Henry in well. Skipper just judges it right. Milligan. Skipper dummies nicely. Very cool, composed there, Peter Skipper. And no challenge from Latics. Skipper looks for Ritchie. Doesn't find him. And this time it's Milligan tugging at Steve Agnew quite clearly. As a Barnsley player down injured and the referee's attention being summoned. Can't just make out who that is from here. Certainly it was an innocuous challenge. And the referee finding it all quite amusing, obviously not serious. It is in fact Jim Dobbin back to his feet. Futcher with the kick. Holding, good header. MacDonald tries to turn his man. Irwin there. And Andy Ritchie with Futcher to beat. Checks nicely inside him and again beats his man. Lays off a good ball to Adams, but just intercepted by McGugan, who sends it way up to the back of the stand. There's the long arm of the law. I was going to say retrieves the ball, he doesn't in fact. It's Dennis Irwin himself, got to climb the fence and gather it. Irwin to Ritchie. Ritchie turns his man nicely. Good cross, and Palmer with a brilliant goal for Latics. That's a super move. A lovely throw to Ritchie. He turned Paul McGugan on a sixpence. He sent over a very firm near post cross, and there was Roger Palmer scoring as he did 2 years ago. Last year it was at the opposite end, but a great goal for Latics. Just the fillip they need. Just 5 minutes into the second half. And that will certainly raise the spirits of this Latics team and hopefully bring back a spring in the stride, because they were looking a little dejected towards half-time. And certainly the long-suffering Latics away followers are beginning to vent behind that goal as Ian Marshall wins a throw-in. And as we said in the first half, if Latics can apply some pressure and get this ball into the feet of Palmer and Ritchie, they've looked shaky at the back of Barnsley. McGugan, nice ball to MacDonald. MacDonald switching the play, but Holding reads it well and in strongly. Not the best of clearances, but Barrett's there and Marshall's onside. But it just runs through. Clive Baker, very alert. Off his line. Barrett in well. Henry beaten in the air. Barrett in well again. Was he touched from behind? He was, by Steve Cooper. And Cooper exchanges words with Barrett. Now with the ref. That characteristic pause of arms behind back that we've seen once or twice this afternoon from Mr. Reid. And certainly Latics not resting on this lead. Andy Holding pushed down there again. Skipper drives it in, this time towards Ritchie, gets the nod on. McGugan heads clear. Palmer tries the overhead, it just goes wrong, and Barnsley have the chance to break. Curry, not a bad ball, beautifully read by Irwin, and Irwin a good ball to Adams. Adams comes inside his man. Finds Ritchie, can Ritchie turn? Ritchie can turn, and Ritchie can score! An absolutely superb strike from Andy Ritchie. Two pieces of real class, all in the space of 3 minutes in the second half. From Andy Ritchie, he turned his man inside out and beat Clive Baker comfortably. And the Latics fans behind that goal absolutely on the feet. A brilliant goal from Ritchie, and Latics from nowhere have turned this game round. I don't know what Joe Royal said to these lads at half time, but it certainly had the desired effect as Curry forces Skipper into conceding the corner. And the Latics players all getting back, doubtless remembering the trouble that was caused by those corners at the end of the first half. They certainly won't want to concede one so soon after going into the lead. And the home fans absolutely stunned by those two Latics goals, as it's a free header for MacDonald. And it's in the back of the net. I don't believe it. Andy Rhodes, the defenders remonstrating with Andy Rhodes, asking him, why on earth, Andy, didn't you come and collect that ball? It was well inside the 6-yard box. But I'm afraid Andy Rhodes didn't. And just what Latics didn't want, a scrambled goal again to Barnsley, just 8 minutes into the half. And it's just as Joe Royal said, that's the second really scrappy goal. That one particularly so, and I do feel Andy Rhodes, the defenders were right. He should have come and claimed that ball. As David Curry turns inside Andy Holding, now turns outside Andy Holding, but just runs the ball dead. And that's desperate for Latics. There were 3 Latics defenders all around that ball. They all seemed to have chance to clear it. I think they were waiting for the keeper to come and take charge. He didn't do so, and it was a Barnsley foot in the scramble. I couldn't make out, in fact, who it was at the end of the day stuck that ball in. But nevertheless, it's an equaliser as Earl Barrett fouls Steve Lowndes. Dennis Irwin under pressure, heads out nicely, but Adams can't just keep the ball in. But Latics have shown what they can do. They've scored 2 pure football goals, as opposed to Barnsley's rather certainly second fortuitous attempt. But it's a throw to Barnsley. Just 10 minutes into this second half, and what an opening we've had. We had a very, very drab first 30 minutes. The game livened up a little towards the end of the first half, and certainly we had a great start to the second half, and the home fans get to the feet as Barnsley get a corner. And it's certainly from corners that Barnsley have caused Latics most trouble. It's another in-swinging kick. This time Rhodes does come, gets his hands to it, and that's surely much better now. The ball he came for on that occasion was much further out than the ball he elected not to go for last time. Latics playing football, Palmer to Barrett. Good header from Skipper. Under pressure, illegal pressure from Lowndes. McGugan up well, so too Henry. Nobody offside. Future, is he fouled? He is indeed. It didn't seem much of a nudge, but it was enough for Mr. Reid. As Paul Futcher saved his side, not for the first time this afternoon. Barnsley's Player of the Month for December. Holding under that well. Barrett in with a good tattle. Finds Palmer. Palmer to Adams. Adams trying to find Ritchie with a first time ball. Doesn't succeed. MacDonald a good turn. Puts Curry away. And Rhodes is out. Is that a penalty? It is a penalty as Andy Rhodes, I'm afraid, has pulled him down. The referee's run to the corner flag. I'm not quite sure why. But anything that could go wrong for Latics is doing so. They scored a couple of absolutely great goals. And now in the space of 5 minutes, they've let in a sloppy second goal. And now it's David Curry with the penalty. No effort at all. 12 minutes into the half. The score: Barnsley 3 goals, Latics 2. And Andy Ritchie is telling the referee that David Curry dived. I don't know about that, but he certainly scored from the spot. And Ian Marshall now on the break. Has he shown too much of it to Futcher? He has, but it's a corner nevertheless. Dennis Irwin it is with the kick. Swings it out. Skipper up, but heads over the bar. Climbed well, Peter Skipper, but just couldn't get on top of the ball. And Barnsley make a substitution. John Beresford being brought off. Malcolm Shotton coming on. I think that's a tactical substitution. John Beresford doesn't appear to be carrying a knock of any sort. Be interesting to see the formation of the Barnsley defence, because to the best of my knowledge Malcolm Shotton is a central defender, but he seems to be going out to left back. And Curry again beating Holden, and there's a man free on the right. But Barnsley couldn't find him, and Ritchie was surely pushed in the back. Indeed he was. And Futcher's taken a knock in the process. And Andy Rhodes at the moment, well out of his box, being tormented by the home fans. Rhodesy, what's the score? They're chanting to him. Of course, starting his career here, there won't be any love lost this afternoon for Andy Rhodes, as Peter Skipper will again drive deep into the box, holding up, but not up high enough. Shotton clears well. Barrett's in, so too Henry. Henry to Barrett. Ritchie with the cross, but Barnsley men there, but Latics have men out on the right. Adams. Irwin finds him now. Beat Shotton with ease, but unfortunately, did he get touched? He did. He just got his ankles tapped. That was enough for Mr. Reid. And that wasn't a good ball from Irwin. A nice idea, but the ball struck much too firmly. Adams no chance with that one, so 16 minutes into the half, Barnsley still in the lead. But Latics at least showing some invention in the second half, which they certainly didn't really in the first. Cooper up well. Holden back to Rhodes. Futcher and Ritchie had a battle royal. Barrett takes the ball nicely on his chest. Looking for a man, Ian Marshall beautifully. And a 1-2 when it just won't quite work. Milligan with a chance of a drive. That's a corner ball to Latics, but again, good football, lovely control from Ian Marshall. A pity he couldn't just see out on the right wing that Neil Adams was completely free. But nevertheless, good pressure from Latics. They've caused the Barnsley defence more problems in the first 15 minutes of the second half than they did in the whole of the first. Irwin with the cross. Skipper again, gets in a good header. And Futcher just gets a touch, and it's a corner ball again. But Barnsley scrambling. Certainly not happy when they're under pressure, this Barnsley defence. Win a good ball. This time it's holding up and Latics winning the ball in the air. But just not able to capitalise in the shape of a goal. Ball aimed for Cooper. Cooper chests it down nicely. And was Kerry onside? The ref says yes, but Rhodes out to meet him. Was that a nudge in the back? No. And again, Curry has got free, completely free of holding. And there goes his second goal of the afternoon. And that, I'm afraid, was down to terrible marking at the back by Latics. You don't leave a man like David Curry free. And with all the cool and class in the world, took it wide of Andy Rhodes and chipped him. Just 18 minutes into the half, Barnsley extend the lead to 4-2. And Latics, from a period where they seemed all over Barnsley, they'd scored 2 goals. As I speak, Ian Marshall comes again. Futcher covers as always. But from seemingly Barnsley dispirited and Latics well on top, 7 minutes into the half, just 11 minutes later, Barnsley 2 goals to the good. Irwin with the ball, this time Baker comes and gathers cleanly. Skipper under that one, heads out well, Kerry can't control. Ritchie beaten by McGugan, no, his strength keeps him off. Adams beats his man, obstructed by Shotton. As Latics bring on Tommy Wright. Is it too late? I wonder, I'm just trying to see who for, possibly for Neil Adams. Can't see at this stage. In fact, it's for Peter Skipper. So Joe Royal certainly flinging everything into attack now. Not sure who captain's going to be now. Perhaps Milligan, perhaps Ritchie. In fact, I think Tommy Wright's been made skipper just at the moment. He is indeed. He's got the armband on anyway. Receives a great round of applause from the Latics fans. Irwin with a good deep cross. And Tommy Wright quickly into the action. And that's a dead ball. Be interesting to see the Latics formation, perhaps Ian Marshall going to centre half, it certainly appears so, with Andy holding. With Palmer pushing up, that seems to be the formation. Roger Palmer pushing up alongside Andy Ritchie as Latics go for 4-2-4. Henry and Milligan in the middle. As Ian Marshall doesn't make that ball, Dennis Irwin does just at the second attempt. And Latics have 3-on-3 up front. Futcher well in front of Ritchie. Kerry this time is caught offside. Noticeable that it's Ian Marshall gone to mark him. Holding, causing trouble, doesn't get that ball. Ritchie, a nice pass to Adams. Adams beats his man but slips, has another go, but Shotton does well. And certainly there's no urgency by the home fans to get that ball. Dennis Irwin with the throw to Adams, to Irwin. Left foot cross, Ritchie up, but Barnsley clear well, and Curry can't just control it. That's a poor ball out from Marshall, and a tremendous pass out to this right wing. Cooper takes it in his stride. Nick Henry back to cover. Well, that's a terrible cross, nobody anywhere near that one. Steve Agnew trying to get on the end of it, had no chance. Cooper really needed to hold that ball up while his teammates got near him. Futcher mistimes it. Ritchie, Adams free. It's a good ball and Latics have men up. Tommy Wright's there, but he just can't get contact. He went for it with his foot. If he'd have dived with his head, he may have had more chance. But certainly Barnsley at 6s and 7s again. As Curry backs onto Marshall, but Marshall still wins the ball. Uncharacteristic bad pass from Irwin. Shorten, and that is just, I would say, about 10 yards offside. Steve Lowndes can't manage to score. Nevertheless, Marshall trying to get the game restarted quickly. We're just midway through this second half. Tommy Wright gets up well, beats his man nicely, but takes a nudge after the ball. That was a silly thing to do because Tommy Wright had given the ball away. Steve Lowndes bundles him over. Latics in, but Barnsley clear at the second and third attempt. Barrett back nicely, takes on Curry, but a poor pass from Earl Barrett, and that's a lovely ball right into the middle for Steve Lowndes with room to move. He spreads it in turn for Joe Joyce, but Latics back quickly to regroup, and two Barnsley men on side. Steve Agnew in space, a good cross, and Earl Barrett just flicks away. He's fouled, a good decision from the ref. Steve Cooper fouled him clearly, pushing the back. But the game has certainly opened up in this second half. Palmer up well, just can't quite find Ritchie, it's all a bit too tight. And this time I think Milligan going to go in the book. That was nothing more than an overzealous challenge, but he's going in the book, is Mike Milligan. 25 minutes into the second half for that tattle on Steve Agnew, as his frustrations really overflow. One or two decisions gone against Latics he's not been happy with. And so Futcher, with just 20 minutes left to get us started again, drives it deep towards the Latics penalty spot. Well up by Marshall. Marshall's taking a knock. I can't quite see, there's Barnsley being penalised, I feel, for offside, but I thought that the injured Ian Marshall had played them on, to be honest, but nevertheless will not complain. I think he's possibly just winded. He is indeed, I think. So Andy Rhodes with the kick. having had very few saves to make apart from that hectic 2 minutes at the end of the first half, and yet still having conceded 4 goals. The signing of Andy Holden for a record £130,000 doesn't seem to as yet have stopped this Latics defence leaking goals at an alarming rate, as there goes Marshall covering well. Joe Royal does feel that Latics have always defended better when they've had a big strong man type of centre half in the mould of Paul Jones and Kevin Moore, but it's not gone that way this afternoon, as there's been some, unfortunately, it's got to be said, poor defending allied with a couple of scrambled efforts, as Henry no option really but to give back to Rhodes, as Latics desperately need a goal to get back into this match. Andy Ritchie heads well, and just a foot in there from Joe Joyce in between Roger Palmer and Tommy Wright. Holden is bundled off the ball by Cooper, who is playing the man, not the ball, and Holden goes right upfield as Latics throw everything forward. Dennis Irwin is free on the right actually, if Ian Marshall's seen him. He hasn't, and it's Holden it's aimed for, but shot up well. Adams is onside, but miss kicks the ball off Milligan. Barnsley throw. As the distinct chill of this crisp winter's afternoon begins to set in, and Latics clear. Palmer gets up well, doesn't get the ball. Henry does. Palmer tries again, and this time it's Steve Lowndes penalised, using the hip to shield the ball. Steve Lowndes making his 100th match for Barnsley this afternoon. His sister watching the game with somewhat mixed feelings. She's due to marry Andy Rhodes later in the season. As Latics just can't make anything of that free kick, and that was just a bit too flashy from Steve Lowndes, and he was almost made to pay for it. As Latics on the watch have just got 15 minutes left to salvage something. Milligan nutmegged by Kerry, and MacDonald definitely playing the man, not the ball. Home fans not happy, but they should know well enough that Mr. Reid, one thing he has been this afternoon, is consistent. The slightest of physical contact has been penalised from the minute he blew the first whistle, and at least the players know where they are when a referee is consistent. Palmer, a lovely ball to Adams. Adams with a chance, 1-1 to beat his man. Comes inside, thinks about a shot, finds Ritchie. Ritchie chips and gets a corner, does he? He doesn't, in fact, he miskicks. And the ball skews off the outside of his right foot for a dead ball. And again, it's Steve Cooper leaning on Marshall. Marshall sets himself to pump this ball downfield. Dummies to Irwin, decides against it. Instead looks for Holden. Holden doesn't get up above Steve Cooper. It's a great tackle from Milligan. He's worked hard all afternoon. Adam beats his man beautifully. Comes inside, and it's a penalty. He goes over the legs of Paul McGugan, and Mr. Reid gives the penalty. So Andy Ritchie steps up. The Barnsley defenders don't like it. He certainly impeded him. I'm not so sure that it was deliberate, but will not complain. As Andy Ritchie, with a good record from the spot, doesn't make any mistakes, and we've certainly got a lively last 13 minutes here at Oakwell. The score now, Barnsley 4, Latics 3. As Mr. Reid gets roundly booed by the Barnsley fans as he comes back to the halfway line. But what a match we have in prospect now. Tommy Wright pressuring Futcher. And Cooper drives the ball hard, but hard and high, way into the stand. As Barnsley slow to return it, those Barnsley fans. And so can Latics still yet salvage something. Palmer tries to find Henry. That's a good ball out wide to Cooper. Holding with him. Cooper checks. A good run from Agnew, shepherded by Milligan. He's leaning on Milligan surely. And he dives looking for the penalty. Mr. Reid this time says no. Futcher very, very cool into the path of Shotton. Marshall, nicely done. Deceives Curry. And Ritchie in, he's certainly come into this match, Andy Ritchie, in the second half, and that is a terrible tackle. That has got to be a booking. It certainly has for Jim Dobbin. A very, very late tackle indeed. There can be no question of that one going into the referee's book. Dennis Irwin felt the full force of that long after the ball had gone. And he does indeed get booked as Paul Warhurst warms up on the touchline just below us. Substitute today, presumably Andy Barlow, didn't pass his late fitness test on his groin strain. And certainly Dennis Irwin, the worse for wear. And so the ball driven into this Barnsley box. Holding up well, doesn't succeed, but Tommy Wright's got the ball, hooks it across. Ritchie's underneath that one. Milligan tries to get in, doesn't make it. He seemed to miss everything, I thought, did Mike Milligan, but the referee didn't think so. Penalises him. Clive Baker taking his time, trying to steady things down. You can see from Clive Baker he's still clean, and yet he's had 3 goals stuck past him. He must wonder what's happened this second half. He's hardly had any saves to make, really. Ian Marshall, dummies, takes a bit too long, shows too much of it to Steve Lyons, and perhaps a little lucky, and he's remonstrating with Andy Rhodes. Perhaps wanted a call from his keeper. Palmer flicks on. Ritchie can't just get there. Barrett under that one. Lyons in the way. Good tackle from Henry. But another superb ball. This time not just finding his man, but Paul Futcher really has. sprayed about some great passes this afternoon. Good head from Richie McGugan, but there's Latics players only there. Latics offside, they're not in fact. And there's distinct signs of panic in this Barnsley defence. Tommy Wright playing the man, unfortunately not the ball. Joe Joyce, Futcher, chance to settle things down. Back to his keeper. We've just 8 minutes left on the watch. A little bit of injury time, not much. And certainly Latics could do with at least 1 point from this match. They're becoming somewhat detached, are the bottom 4 clubs in the second division, from the rest of the pack. And Henry, inexperience showing there. Into the back of Jim Dobbin. Jim Dobbin had nowhere to go. Futcher right-footed. Well, that's too deep. Andy Rhodes gathers safely. Kicks early. McGugan. He's a big lad, is Malcolm Shot, and I'm sure that might be the avenue for Latics to get this equalising goal down that right flank. Using Neil Adams. Palmer is free. Palmer lays off a poor pass. Futcher reads it quicker than Nick Henry. Dennis Irwin to Rhodes. The minutes ticking away. As MacDonald gets in a good ball to Curry. Great tattle from Marshall. And has he lost the throw? He has indeed. But he's certainly quietened down David Curry since he's gone back to centre half as Marshall. And Milligan remonstrating with the referee that Steve Agnew had dived. Unfortunately, Mr. Reid not in agreement. As Malcolm Shotton sets himself, checks his teammates. Cooper tries to chest it down. Lowndes does. Marshall up well. But Latics unable to clear the lines. That's a good ball out wide. Cooper's broken out here. That's a fancy stuff. From centre half, McGugan, confident stuff. Andy Rhodes trying to catch him out of position. Not a good kick. Earl Barrett in well, but can't keep the ball in play. There's 5 minutes left here at Oakwell. Perhaps 2 minutes, I would think, of injury time, but no more. And Cooper's fouled, sandwiched, says the ref, between Holding and Barrett. And the play at the moment concentrated in the wrong half of the field for Latics. That's easy for Rhodes. Latics must get out and clear the lines, get some men up front. There's not enough people up there. Futcher all the time in the world. Good tattle from Barrett. They must surely press up now, Latics, and pressurise Barnsley. Barrett up well. Adams is free right. And Palmer just couldn't quite get that ball inside Shotton. A little chip over him might have been better. Just caught his heels. And again, Curry backing on. Allowed to get away with it. And Richie, has he found Henry? He has. Henry's found Barrett. And now a good ball out wide from Henry to Tommy Wright. chance to have a run at his man. Gets in a good early cross. Ritchie's there. It's just flicked away, but Adams gets in a cross deep. Oh, and the ball's completely missed by Joe Joyce. But in doing so, he deceived Tommy Wright. Joe Joyce tried to head that ball for the corner kick. Didn't succeed. Milligan in well. And Latics putting great pressure on Barnsley. Ritchie with space. He's Adams wide. Palmer through. And Palmer miskicks. A dreadful miskick from Roger Palmer. Andy Ritchie used Neil Adams as a foil and slid a lovely slide rule pass right through the Barnsley defence onto what's usually the trusty right boot of Roger Palmer. But this time, unfortunately, it failed him. But Latics again carved Barnsley wide open. And they've certainly not thrown in the towel this afternoon. Dennis Irwin in well. This lad Curry's the one who's caused the damage up front. He's shown great pace and been rewarded with his 2 goals. And Latics caught offside. The home fans whistling, but there's 2 minutes plus injury time left on the watch. Cooper caught, in fact it wasn't Cooper, it was Dobbin caught clearly offside. Andy Rose looking for Ritchie. Tommy Wright won't beat Futcher in the air. Henry's well into that one. With a good head from Shotton. Ritchie, Irwin looks for Palmer. Palmer flicks it inside. And Henry gets the ball into the middle, but there's nobody there for Latics. As the whistles start up again. Ritchie chests the ball down. Can't find Henry. And Barnsley just happy to stick that ball in touch. The linesman on the far side has signalled just 1 minute left to the ref. And I make it a little less than that. As full time has now arrived on my watch. We're now playing the time. Mr. Reed's added on for injuries, and let's hope it's a bit. Tommy Wright beaten to it. Holding up well. Henry in well, and again they're trying to find this man Curry, but Dennis Irwin covering nicely. A super ball to Adams, and Irwin's going on the overlap. Checks back now. Adams eventually runs out of space as Curry, of all people it is, back to make the tackle on Irwin and win the dead ball, and that could possibly be Latics' last chance. He acknowledges the linesman on this side. Clive Baker with the kick. Tremendous head from Holden. Palmer has Adams free. Can Adams do it? One last chance for Latics. He's on the outside of his man. A low cross to the near post. Barnsley clear it. Throw to Latics. The ref checks his watch again. Andy Holden's coming up. Clever play from Milligan. Adams, can he get the cross in? He can't, in fact. As Curry puts the ball away. And Barrett will have to show great pace, and he does do well, Barrett. Tremendous pace shown, and he's nudged in the back now by Steve Lowndes. But it looked as if Steve Lowndes for 1 minute had a clear run to Latics' goal. Ian Marshall just happy to drive it upfield. Anywhere upfield will do, but it's too late for Latics. They showed nothing in the first half, didn't Latics? They ended up going in 1-0 down at half-time. They made a brilliant start to the second half with goals from Ritchie and Palmer. But then some moments of madness in defence. Ended up conceding 3 goals between the 8th and the 18th minute to Barnsley. And although Andy Ritchie put Latics back in with a chance after 32 minutes, the game really was all over, and try as they might, they just couldn't get that equalising goal. And let's be honest, if you score 3 goals away from home, you shouldn't be losing. So the sad tale for Latics continues here at Oakwell this afternoon. The score: Barnsley 4, Oldham Athletic 3.